Morning, dude. Careful, it's really hot. You still sore from riding yesterday? Yeah. Which one do you like better, dirt bike or e-bike?
100% e-bike. I saw the smile on his face all day.
Here we go again with the e-bikes, this and that. Dirt bikes are far superior.
Says the guy that just bought a $12,000 e-bike.
Got him. Okay, I told you guys I didn't pay $12,000 for it. I paid $5,000. It was a steal, not a deal.
Yeah, a steal on a far superior two-wheeled vehicle. Am I right or am I right or am I right?
All right, hold up. We all think two-wheeled mobility is king in times of conflict and in third world countries, so at least we all agree on something.
And that is why e-bikes win, just like the contract bike he just went out and bought for 12 grand.
Dude, please don't get him going.
Oh, I wonder why it won the contract, Christian. Probably because it's stealthy quiet. Invisible on the thermal spectrum.
Okay, you know who else is on the spectrum? People like you who think stupid stuff like that, Drew.
Oh, little man with a big fork. Don't you dare point that crap at me.
Big sport guy? Big spoon guy?
Do it then. I dare you. Come on, Peter Dinklage. Let's see what you got.
I will throw this fork at you.
Guys, come on. Let's just take a deep breath. Let's calm down.
No. Let's see what Tyrion Lannister's made of. Do it. I dare you.
I hate you.
All right, stop. We're gonna sell this right now. You're gonna want to stick around for this.
All right, let's all get on the same page with a little bit of context first. I think that citizens who are trying to be more prepared individuals, more well-rounded individuals, are starting to see that buying another rifle doesn't really give them any new capabilities. So they're looking at two-wheeled mobility, which is kind of the king in third world countries where hard times are always around, but they really don't know where to start. Should they get an e-bike, which is super cool and popular these days, or should they get a dirt bike, which has kind of been the standard for years? How far does their money go? What can they actually get depending on their budget? What is the wisest use of their finances, and which one of these is actually going to fit their needs the best? Let's get into it. Let's start with energy, fuel consumption, and range.
I've been riding dirt bikes for a few years, really just as a hobby. But when I found out about e-bikes, my mind immediately went to, oh good, if something bad ever happens, I then don't have to worry about not getting gas. And then once I thought about it a little bit more, I realized, yeah, but our electricity and the grid comes from burning fossil fuels. So if gas is gone, even sourcing good, high energy electricity is still going to be a big problem as well. So that's kind of a moot point as far as like, if energy's gone and hard to actually get, it's gone regardless of the bike. I will say though that in third world countries and in combat, it seems like it's a lot easier to find the logistics of gas than it is plugging into an outlet.
Totally agree, with the caveat that if you have an e-bike, you should also have a solar generator solution. And that's not just good for e-bikes, that's good for your house, your home, everything that you do in general, so you're not reliant on gas. I do agree though that the likelihood of fuel going completely dry is very, very low in this country. I will say this, I'll tell you guys a story actually. I was in Nicaragua in the early 2000s and I went to a city dump called La Chureca. Everyone there was homeless, they're super poor, they built their homes out of just pure trash, little huts. But even those guys figured out a way. They could not afford gas, but they figured out a way to provide themselves energy. And when you actually looked at the dump in general, you would see little cables, electrical cables running all throughout it, spider webbing out across all of the different huts because they were siphoning or stealing electricity from the city. So you'd have these huts that had a hole to poop in, a log to sit on or trash to sit on, and then a flat screen TV with cable going. And it was hilarious. So you can still figure out ways to get energy even, if you're doing the whole e-bike method.
Yeah, and while I kind of agree that having a generator and solar is definitely the way to go if you have an electric vehicle, to Drew's point with his story, the only reason those people were able to provide themselves electricity is because there was still a grid to go off of. If there is no grid, there is no capability of doing that, and that is where solar does make a ton of sense.
We're not currently in a third world country. We do have a grid still up and we can still get fuel pretty much at any street corner here in America. You also have to consider the time to recharge or refuel your bike as well. So at least on these e-rides, from 20 to 80%, it takes like 2 hours to actually charge all the way up. Dude, we topped off your bike this morning and we weren't at the gas station for more than 5 minutes, and it cost $5. So there's definitely a cost, because you are still paying for electricity, but then there's the time factor to actually gas up your mode of transportation.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because in relation to gasoline, there is a lot of different ways to store it, and you can have a small amount of gasoline on you, you can have a larger form of gasoline on you that you keep in your garage. And to put it in perspective, this is a 30 fluid ounce bottle. This will take you 13 miles. This is probably less than $1 worth of gas. If I were to have 30 gallons in my garage and I rode my bike 120 miles a week, which is what the average commute is for the average American, at 54 miles a gallon, that would roughly last me 13 weeks, which is a very long time. If you add some fuel stabilizer, a lot of people think that gas is just gonna deteriorate. It's not necessarily true. You can add fuel stabilizers to the gas and you can store it for long-term use.
Yeah, so Christian can actually fill his bike up on about 2.5 to 3 gallons. A lot of dirt bikes are like that, which is not a lot of weight if you're carrying extra fuel on you. Whereas for the e-bikes, you know, this battery is 30 pounds and it costs $2,000. And in fact, most of the batteries on e-bikes eat up most of your purchasing cost. And they do deteriorate over time. The jury's kind of out on that, how long it takes for it to, like, you know, be at, you know, 70% capacity, that kind of thing. But that's definitely one plus in the dirt bike category. Although I will say, I think e-bike technology and battery technology is going to advance a ton over the next 5 or 6 years.
So Goose, you were saying that your dirt bike will go 150 miles on a full tank? And that, I'm sure, depends on how you're riding and like what kind of terrain you're going through, if you're doing highway speeds. And the same would be true for an e-bike as well. But when we did our e-bike video, Drew, we figured out that it states the battery should be able to take you on a full charge 90 miles, but then we were pinning it as fast as it would go right at 60 miles an hour. And that battery was draining, and we'd probably only be getting 20 to 30 miles at best. So range is really gonna be dependent on how you're riding and where you're riding and how fast you're riding. That being said, dirt bikes definitely have the get you there faster, because they do go highway speeds, and then they definitely have the range, and then they also have the ability to quickly top off with gas. So if that's something that you're worried about, dirt bike kind of has you beat. And another really big talking point around dirt bikes and e-bikes is durability. E-bikes have not been out nearly as long as dirt bikes, but they are coming a long way in a short amount of time. So what really sets these apart in regards to durability?
Dirt bikes have been around for a lot longer. You look at people like Hard Enduro, the freestyle motocross stuff, the racing with Supercross. The guys are jumping 100+ feet, flying around tracks. Enduro's going over huge rocks, and they're just getting destroyed.
Yeah, and I will add, like, to Nick's point, durability is such a big thing. And while most e-bikes, like, you know, the Surons, the e-rides, they are a little bit more fragile than a conventional dirt bike. There are bikes like the Zero or like the Stark Varg that there has been leaps in durability and the engineering in these bikes. That bike feels much more durable than some of the smaller e-bikes on the market, and I only see improvements from there. But yeah, dirt bikes are very, very durable. I crash a lot, so I would know.
Whoa! Yeah, and not to say that e-bikes are not capable of some of this stuff. This recent Red Bull TKO event, they actually had Surons as well and Stark Vargs, and they were doing fine. So it's not that they're not capable, it's just that things may break a bit easier and parts may not be as readily available to some people as dirt bikes are, because they've been around for so long.
Yeah, it's kind of like that argument that we get with Glocks. If you buy a Glock, if you go into any gun store and you need to replace your recoil spring, or you want to get some extra magazines, odds are they're going to have it. If you want to go buy something for your Staccato or for a Walther, they might have it, but you may also have to special order it too. I will say though that I cracked the seat frame on my E-Ride Pro from one spill, and they did a phenomenal job of shipping that product out. It was easy to replace, and when I was reinstalling that component, I was able to tell that they had actually made some upgrades to the part, and it is a lot stronger. So there's an example of e-bikes being built and progressed as time moves on, but because it is a lighter bike, which has its own benefits, it's just not quite going to be as durable.
Another major comparison that we need to make is ease of use or control. How easy is it to control it? And The way that I like to describe it is, let's take it in airplane terms, right? Hopping on an e-bike is kind of like hopping into a game of Star Fox 64. Like, you pick up the controller, you can instantly do barrel rolls. You get on it and you just know how to do it. There's basically no skill required, which is great for dudes like me who do not have the dirt bike skill set. Dirt bikes, on the other hand, are like a flight sim where you need to know the controls, you need to know the intricacies of it, and the more you dive into it, the better you get.
Yeah, and on top of that, if your goal is to actually build a skill set, like a lot of what it is that we do here at DC, trying to relay skill sets, then a dirt bike is probably going to be a better play for you in the long run. If you're just looking for instant capability, an e-bike, for both Drew and I, we get on and rip because they are so simple. So if you're looking to be someone like an Ethan Hunt or a James Bond, where you could go anywhere in the world and you can drive a stick in a car, you can hop on a dirt bike and take it away from the sandstorm, well then if you have that dirt bike experience, you could take an e-bike. If you only have e-bike experience, a dirt bike is just not gonna be the same.
Yeah, and if you're a new rider looking to gain this skill set, I would look at something that has no clutch, that your feet can touch the ground on, that has less power, and overall is probably just gonna be less expensive, so that you're not jumping straight up to the highest thing possible and, you know, render yourself to some injuries of some sort.
For example, I got into bikes a few years ago and I started off on 150. It did have a clutch, and I do feel like I learned a lot by starting on something that had a clutch, and then I outgrew it. It was too slow, too small. I went up to a 250 and then I outgrew that. Now I'm on a 450, and the 450 is perfect, but I'm still learning. I'm not to the point where Nick is at, but that's a perfect example. Like, you will progress. You will start with one bike and you will totally end up on the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, it's the same idea as guns. If you go out and buy for your first rifle, or even worse, if you give your kiddo who's trying to learn a 300 Win Mag Surgeon or Gunworks gun that's ultra expensive, has a ton of recoil and is gonna beat them up, it's not gonna be a fun experience. Someone might get hurt and you end up spending more money trying to go backwards and get someone back into bikes. Hey, real quick, we have to thank some of the sponsors that make content like this possible for you guys every single week. First and foremost, Steel Industries. They actually allow you to hand select your own tubes without any additional cost, and they will ship them to you overnight. Steel Industries also has a facility in Central Florida where you can go in and actually look at the tubes that you might be buying, ask questions and experiment before, again, you spend your own money. Next, we have 100 Concepts, one of my favorite companies that makes light caps so you can actually keep your light from reflecting, or if you accidentally bump it, you're not going to ND your white light. They make a lot of other accessories that actually subdue some of the colors on a backpack or any of the other material like helmets that you may be using, so go check out 100 Concepts. Next, we have Mod Light. So it's dark the majority of the day, and I know I have nods on right now, and that's a little bit counterproductive at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but handheld flashlights are a really, really good defensive tool if you're walking to the parking lot, or if you're just walking around the office and the lights go out and you're looking for your keys, or you get up in the middle of the night because you heard a bump and you don't want to point a weapon at someone or something. Check with your flashlight first. Mod Light also makes a lot of other accessories that go on with lights that you could be putting on your rifle or pistol, so go check out Mod Light. Very high quality products, and they are incredibly durable. Next, if you're spending a lot of time outside, whether you're camping with your e-bike or your dirt bike, or maybe you just want to take the family camping as it's fall now and it's really delightful to be outside, go check out My Patriot Supply. So not only do they make high quality, shelf-stable food that lasts for years, they also make really tasty stuff like buttermilk pancake mix. So go check out My Patriot Supply. Links in the description, and make sure that you have some calories on hand for just in case or for fun experimenting. I'm gonna go ride. I'll catch you guys later. Now, all of this sounds really fun, and everything that we're talking about looks like a fun time, and it is. But if we're trying to talk about this in regards to preparedness and having another mobility tool, which you should consider, so if you're trying to be wise with your finances and invest into different directions, all of us at this point seem to have a budget. And if you are working with a budget, what kind of performance and capability are you going to get out of a $1,500 bike, to a $10,000 bike and everywhere in between.
Yeah, one of the best parts about two-wheel mobility is it can fit just about any budget. The bikes that you see in this video range in price from $1,500 to about $12,000. My E-Ride Pro comes in at $4,100, and the reason why it's so expensive is it's a newer technology. It has pretty good performance right out of the box. And it does allow me to kind of jump past that skill that I need to ride a normal dirt bike and immediately get that capability.
Yeah, so this is a 2017 Husqvarna 350. I paid right around $7 for it. And if you're new and getting into this, especially if you're gonna go the dirt bike route, I would suggest that you get on Facebook Marketplace and do some digging around on there, and don't buy brand new, because one, just like cars, the value just drops the second you take it out the door. Two, there's a lot of good bikes out there used that you can save a lot of money on.
I have a Honda CRF 450 RL. That bike was about $9,000. I think the MSRP around 10. I got it for $9,000 straight out of the showroom floor, brand new. I've done a lot of things to that bike. It's probably, I've probably put a couple $1,000s into it, not much though. The Zero, on the other hand, MSRP's at $12,000. The only thing I've done to that bike so far is I added a chain kit because it comes belt driven, which sucks and it snaps. Literally the second day I owned the Zero, Nick went and took it on some jumps and literally snapped the belt in like 30 seconds.
You mean great value Ricky Carmichael over here hopped on a bike and tried to do some pro level stuff and completely destroyed your bike? Yeah, go figure.
Okay, you forget that I literally film you two every week playing dress up and pretend for a living.
Hey, leave me out of this. I didn't bring any of that up. He's the one that, Christian, give me the fork. Give me the fork. I got the fork now, okay? I'll throw this. We're getting off topic and the audience is still curious. So this Honda CRF 230 is a really good bike. They discontinued it though, just because it was kind of an in-between size. When I bought it 7 years ago, I think it was $3,000. If you shop the sales, you can definitely find a bike along these lines for under $2,000. So with that in mind, go ahead and look at some of the things that you're already spending some money on. I know, at least for myself, I've gotten caught up in wanting a ballistic helmet, wanting to go from a 14 to dual tubes, wanting to throw a nice laser on my rifle. And the next thing I know, there's an extra $10,000 or $12,000 that kind of just gets thrown around over a couple of years, still into rifles. Before I know it, I'm still sitting on a $3,000 dirt bike. I will say for the past couple of years, having a beater dirt bike has let me ride it, crash it, fix it, rebuild it, and really learn the system. And I know Christian grew out of his first dirt bike relatively quickly, but this has been a really good starter bike for me, and now I'm ready to kind of launch into the next size and price point as well.
So what you're saying is Christian grew out of his dirt bike before he grew out of shopping for youth size clothes. Got it.
Drew, by the end of this video, you are gonna end up with another fork thrown at you, I promise.
Where do you keep coming up with these forks, dude?
Anyway, we should talk about maintenance. Gas bikes require a little bit more maintenance than an e-bike. Dirt bikes have all kinds of fluids like coolant, oil, depending on what kind of bike you have, and you also have a lot more moving parts. Versus an e-bike, it's pretty straightforward. You have a motor, you have a battery, and you have all the other like normal wear and tear items like brake pads, rotors, and your chain and sprocket, things like that.
Yeah, and going off the maintenance with what Christian's saying, when you jump into these more high-end bikes like the Husqvarnas, the KTMs, Beta, all those higher end bikes, the maintenance cost is gonna be a lot more and the service interval is gonna be a lot shorter for the most part, just the way the engines are built and the way they run. Whereas if you go to somewhere like Josh's 230, make sure the oil's good and put gas in it and get on it and go. It's like a lawnmower. They're just super reliable. They have a lot less moving parts than some of these other higher end race bikes.
But yeah, the nice thing about dirt bikes though is if something does fail, if your engine just doesn't work anymore, you wear out a piston, you wear out the rings, you can replace those things. E-bikes, it's kind of a big question mark. I know, speaking off of the Zero, it can be kind of hard to find parts for that. A dirt bike, you can just keep rebuilding it and keep using it.
Yeah, and to that point, I will say that when I had the issue with my e-bike with the frame snapping where the seat was and everything, I hopped on their website and saw that they had every single component to that bike available to be replaced. So in theory, you could do one of those things where you spend $100 a week in theory and you can build out a complete bike. That being said, I also want to take a minute and talk about the stability about these bikes and kind of the performance, but how they actually ride, and you two, Nick and Christian, can probably talk about this way better than Drew or I could.
The e-bikes and the dirt bikes have two very different feels when you're riding them. These e-bikes, especially the E-Ride Pros, Surons, Talarias, that little model of e-bike, the tires are a lot skinnier. The suspension is not that good. You can't upgrade those things. But you feel a very big difference when it comes to riding one of those versus like a full-size dirt bike, or even Christian Zero for that matter. The downside, Christian will get into the downside of some of the Zero stuff, but taking both of those models of bikes up and down the hill, one definitely felt more stable and more secure and easier to control up and down the hill than the other one, and that would be the dirt bike, because you have engine braking, which Christian will get into on the Zero, and you don't have that with these electronic bikes because there's just no actual engine to help slow you down.
A full-size dirt bike having a longer wheelbase means I can ride on the pavement and go a lot faster and have more stability. And the longer the wheelbase, the more straight line stability you're gonna have. The shorter the wheelbase, the better turning radius you're gonna have. So there's a bit of a trade-off there. With the shorter wheelbase, you're gonna be able to maneuver in and around stuff a lot easier, and the longer wheelbase, you're gonna be able to go a lot faster in a straighter line, but have a harder time maneuvering around some of the tight technical stuff. The other big difference that I've noticed between an e-bike and a dirt bike is engine braking. E-bikes don't really have much engine braking. They kind of have some of them have a artificial engine braking, like regen, and even with that turned up all the way on my Zero, going down a massive steep hill, it's very, very hard to keep the bike slow and stable versus a dirt bike. When I've gone down that same exact hill, first gear just kind of keeps me stable and it keeps me going down at a nice, slow, steady pace. There's nothing really holding you back on an e-bike. It just wants to kind of coast. At the end of the day, all of these factors really just depend on what you're using the bike for. I use the bike a lot for pavement riding, and so I really need that straight line stability, and I really need to be able to go fast and be able to keep up with other cars and whatnot. And for me, just the smaller e-bikes, they just don't really work for that. But the dirt bike, the Zero, those definitely fit that need of kind of being like that all-around general purpose, being able to take it on the pavement, go fast, and being able to go off-road, and they just kind of work out.
Yeah, and to add a little bit to what Christian's saying, you need to consider the weight of all of these things when you're looking at these. These E-Rides and Surons in that category of e-bike are extremely lightweight compared to some of these dirt bikes, and even Christian Zero for that matter. You're looking at about 130 to 150 pounds on those bikes, whereas on these full-size dirt bikes, you're pushing around 220 to 250, depending on the model and what you put on it. I can say, taking all of these bikes down and up that hill, the E-Ride was definitely more of a mountain bike feel going up and down due to the small tires, due to the lightweight. You have less downward weight and force on the actual ground itself, so it's braking traction more often, whereas dirt bikes are a little bit heavier, they have a wider tire, so all of that really benefits in your usability in some sticky situations.
If you're going to be using a bike like this or any of the other bikes that we have, you're probably going to want to consider carrying other things with the bike. So my first reaction when I thought about carrying something with the bike was a backpack, and that's very doable. But if you have a lot of weight on your back, it gets really top heavy because standing and being able to move the bike under you is a really important part of being mobile on a tool like this. Christian has showed us a couple times Moscow Moto packs that are designed to go directly onto the bike itself. And that does give you the ability to keep it watertight as well as carry weight directly on the bike. And then it's not on your body and you're able to move around freely. There's another level to this though. If you're going to be using this as a secondary or even primary form of transportation, you may want to integrate it onto a vehicle, whether it's a truck or something like a 4Runner. Nick and Christian both have forms of getting them onto the back of their trucks with a trailer hitch. I have been using a family-made trailer. You could go buy a used one, you could go buy a new one. But if you are going to have a 200+ pound dirt bike, you're probably going to need a dedicated way to actually transport that bike itself as well.
It does not take a rocket scientist to know that e-bikes are quieter than dirt bikes. Everyone knows this, but it is interesting how the sound between the two can be different. The thing about e-bikes, they have a little whine to them, and if you know what you're listening for, you can actually kind of hone in on where they're at. They have to be closer, but because it's a less loud sound, you can kind of pinpoint it, right? Whereas dirt bikes, they are ultra loud and they have a big, broad general sound. So the idea that you just can't be heard on dirt bike or on e-bikes whatsoever, it's not exactly true. There's a proximity effect there, but the bigger point here is that depending on what your environment is and what your use case is, an e-bike could be very loud. For example, if I walk into a coffee shop here in the middle of Tennessee and I have dyed my hair pink, that color is loud. There are certain places where if you have an e-bike, you look weird and you stand out. And one of the big things that we talk about here at DC is blending in, just looking like a normal person. And in that regard, if you're not smart about what kind of bike you're getting, and if you want to not stand out, well, you know, sometimes an e-bike is not the play.
If you live in an urban area, you may want to consider something more like a dual sport or even a street bike, although your street bike loses your off-road capability if that needs to happen. Something to consider, just because you live in an urban area doesn't necessarily mean you need to get an e-bike. You might just blend in better with something like a dual sport or even a street bike.
Speaking of loud, Nick's hair.
So the other thing about sound is sound doesn't necessarily travel the way people think. The way I like to phrase it is if you have a 13.7 with a bird cage on it, just because it doesn't have a suppressor on it doesn't necessarily mean it's not useful. You will still use it if you need to. It's the same thing with dirt bikes. They have mufflers and it does send the sound in a weird direction. It's not exactly a one-to-one. Like when you're standing right next to it and hearing it, it's not the same as if you're 5 miles down the road and in the woods. You don't hear it that well. It's very hard to like pinpoint exactly where it's at.
Going back to the overall concept that we started with in regards to this video is, guys, people have been using bikes just like this. Maybe not e-bikes, but they are growing in popularity. In third world countries and in times of conflict, these are not just meant for when times are really, really good. They're an incredible asset for when times get really hard.
So the question still remains, dirt bike or e-bike? The answer is yes, and it really comes down to what are your needs and what do you want to be able to accomplish with it. And I will say this, just as a final note, whichever route you decide, you really can't go wrong. Whatever route you go builds a skill or builds a confidence or helps you level up to whatever is next. And you can always sell a dirt bike and get a better dirt bike. You can always sell a cheap dirt bike and buy a better e-bike. Same is true with e-bikes. You could start here and then realize, hey, I want a dirt bike, and this stuff sells pretty quickly and pretty easily. I will say whatever you choose to go with, lean into its strengths. Don't try and make up for its weaknesses. And that's pretty much a good formula in life also. Like if you're good at something, if you're naturally good at something, get amazing at it, master it. Don't try and be the best at absolutely everything. For e-bikes, they are excellent for going short distances, really quick, really fast, really snappy. You can charge it up at home. It's just quick and easy, and you instantly have a capability at your disposal. Dirt bikes, they're for the long haul. That just straight up. Gas is easy, it's cheap to get. It takes you a really long way for a really little amount of money, and they've just been around forever. I mean, there's a reason why it's the primary mode of transportation in India, Sri Lanka, Nicaragua, like anywhere that you go, people that are living with nothing and having to make resources stretch further than any of us in America have ever had to worry about. There's a reason why they turned to two-wheel mobility. With that being said, thank you guys for sticking around. Big thanks to Nick and Christian for being with us, and Patreon.
Yeah, absolutely. Patreon has access to content like this before it goes on YouTube. They also have first access to us. So if you guys have questions about some of the gear that you see in our videos, how Nick pulls off some of the shots that he makes happen, or any other random stuff, you can reach us there at Patreon. Thank you again for supporting us and keeping us going. If you guys are looking for a little bit of merch or some of the other things that we sell on our website, it does help keep us going and making content like this possible every week too. And with that, make sure you get out there and get some training in whatever it is you're trying to get good at.
Aw, little man with a big fork. Don't you dare point that at me.
Two-wheel mobility is king, but when it comes to, nope.
Christian's
just making circles around his bike.